Is it hot in here or is it just me? 10-2 last week. I think it's me. So everything hit that we were going to put in last week, except that women's fight between Julie Pilastri and Lupi Godinez. And we also lost to Kevin Borjas, Ronaldo Rodriguez decision. So those were two that we were a little iffy on to begin with, but we still had a good week. We killed it. 10-2. Like I said, we are going to keep that momentum into this week. We have the UFC Apex coming back again. We've got Josh Emmett taking on Lerone Murphy. This should be another banger of a match. We're going to go through the whole card here. I'm going to give you my picks. I'm going to make this quick tonight, and I'm going to give you my bets at the end, and we'll see how we go this weekend. I've already got them in, so I wanted to get this out as quickly as possible. So you have your opportunity to get these bets in if you're going to follow or if you are going to fade, whatever you're going to do. My name is Brady. This is Be All In Sports. Thanks for joining again. If you are, if not, hop on the bandwagon because we're killing it. And we're going to continue from this point on. We're going to just nail these things. So let's get right into it. I want to talk about so I've been trying to go back and forth, thinking whether or not I want to get my own graphics up, and it just seems like I'm doing the research on usually throughout Saturday and Sunday, so it's a little bit difficult to do the research and then try and put together all the other stuff and do everything that I got to catch up on through the weekend. So I've kind of gone with this method. I'm going to use some of this stuff from the UFC website. We'll see how that goes until I can get a little bit more time and start putting together some decent slideshows for you guys again. But we're going to start it right off. We have a matchup between Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Talita Alencar. This is going to be a women's strawweight bout. Demopoulos is coming in at 11-6. Alencar 5-1-1. They're both coming off losses in their last matchup. I think this is going to, and you're going to hear me say this a lot during this whole entire fight card, I think this one comes down to aggressiveness. I think Demopoulos is going to be the more aggressive fighter. She's got more experience in the octagon. Coming off that last loss, she seems a little bit more motivated. She always goes out looking to have a good time. And Alencar, the last matchup that she had, I expected a little bit more. I expected the grappling and control time on the ground to get a little bit better, and it really didn't. It didn't seem to improve that much. And I just think that Demopoulos is going to be the better fighter in this one. So I'm going to go with Vanessa Demopoulos, and it seems like the odds just keep getting better and better if you are betting Demopoulos. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I don't have any bets in on it just yet, but I'm going to definitely keep an eye on it, and I may be putting some in a little bit later. We will go right on to the next matchup. We have Victor Henry taking on Pedro Falcao. Falcao. I don't know how you say that. I had it before I started this thing, and now it's kind of escaping me, but this should be a decent bantamweight matchup. Victor Henry is getting a little bit older. He seems to just continuously hold his own, though. If he's not getting hit in the nuts, he seems to be, doing pretty well in his matchups. On the other hand, Falcao, this guy, I want to see what he's got this time because he did have a very tough matchup the last time out with Victor Hugo. I'm pretty high on Victor Hugo. If he can make weight, I don't think he's in the UFC, but I don't think it was based on fighting ability. I think it's just the simple fact that the guy can't seem to get it right when it comes to the scale. So I'm not sure if he's even in the UFC anymore, but I do know that he wasn't a bad fighter. And coming in on short notice, seeing what he did against Victor Hugo, I don't think that was a bad look for him. And I'm kind of interested to see how he comes into this matchup. He is going to be slightly at a size advantage here, but and just a little bit on the reach advantage, but I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be too much for him to overcome. Like I said, when you're going to decision with Victor Hugo, I think Victor Hugo is a pretty decent fighter, and I know I don't want to do MMA math here, but Victor Henry, you just haven't, to me, had any substantial wins. I know you fought some decent people, but winning over Ronnie Yaya and Tony Gravely, who neither one are in the UFC again. So I feel like this is kind of a battle between people who have fought people that are not in the UFC, almost to see who's worthy of still being in the UFC. Pedro Falcao is the newcomer in all this, so I'm gonna go with Pedro there. I don't want to mispronounce his last name again if I am, so I'm going Falcao over Henry there, and I just did it again. So whatever happens, happens. But he is my pick. I believe he is setting at underdog odds right now. It's kind of moving more towards his favor. So if you're, like I said, if you're going to try and get some of these bets in quickly, I suggest maybe doing it a little bit sooner rather than later in his case. Next up, we have Loma Lukebunmi taking on Estela Nunez. Right off the bat, I'm not going against. This is going to be a women's strawweight bout. Lukebunmi 9-3, Estela Nunez 6-5. Estela Nunez is coming off a loss in her last matchup, and Lukebunmi is coming off that win. Look, I'm not going against Lukebunmi. She is, even though she's slightly undersized in this matchup, she puts on a heavy amount of volume, and I don't see her being the type that she's going to be taken down in these matchups. And especially in this matchup, I haven't really been impressed with anything that I've necessarily seen from Nunez just to this point. And I think that the advantage is definitely going to be on Lukebunmi's side. Unfortunately, I don't have any betting odds because I am going through DraftKings. I could switch it over to FanDuel, but right now, kind of going away from that just a little bit, trying to keep it all in one. And DraftKings does not have the odds out just yet. So if it gets too out of hand and I see it just absolutely inflating on me to where I can't bet it anymore, I may have to switch over to FanDuel and see what I can do over there. But Lukebunmi is going to be the pick. I can't go against it. That's just what I'm seeing in that matchup. We'll move right along because at this point, I don't have anything that I can talk about any further because I don't have it much on the lines. I know it's going to be high. Right now, I think on FanDuel, she's a minus 590, if that tells you anything. So she's expected to win. I think she's going to win. I'm going with her. Next up, we have Reese McKee taking on Daniel Frunza. Look, both are – well, this is going to be the debut for Frunza. And this is going to be Reese McKee coming off of a loss in his last matchup. Reese McKee's kind of been dealt a bad hand. He's had a lot of high-level competition coming into the UFC. Obviously, when you're fighting people with names like, Chidi Njokuani, Angelusa, you've had some decent wins, but that was over in Cage Warriors. And I'm just not sure that this is going to be the spot. I want to go with the guy that's got the most experience because I don't like taking newcomers coming in off their debut. But I kind of think that this is a matchup that Frunza, he can get this done. They're right around that same height, and I just think that it's going to be a matchup that is going to I think he's going to get him out of there, honestly. I know that Reese McKee is a little bit tougher than what he's shown in some of these matchups, but I just got to go with what my gut's telling me on some of these because, again, you have debuts coming in, and I know it's a risky spot, but sometimes it's kind of worth the squeeze. So I'm going to take Frunza in this matchup. I think he's got the ability to get it done. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, but that's kind of where I'm leaning in this matchup. We'll see if things change as we get closer to the fights, but I pull off the win there. He was sitting at minus 166. I'm not sure if that's changed just yet, but that is my pick for McKee versus Frunza. All right, Diana Belbita taking on Dione Barbosa. This is going to be a decent women's match. This is going to be a women's flyweight bout. 15-9 for Belbita, 7-3 for Barbosa. The advantage as far as experience is obviously on the side of Belbita. The people that she's fought, in my eyes, are a little bit on the lack. Yeah, a little bit on the lackluster side. But at the same time, you can kind of say the same thing about Barbosa. But I am going to have to go with I'm going to go with experience in this one. And again, the weight kind of throws me off just a little bit because I think that Barbosa, seeing that she weighed in, her last weight was at 135, and now we're going down to flyweight. So that's going to change just a little bit. And Belbita is getting the opportunity, and she's moving up in weight from her last. So we're going to see how this one goes. But I think that I am going to take Belbita in this matchup just based on more of an experience level. I think that she can get this done. So I'm going to stick with my original thought in this. And again, a lot of these are, I want to get this stuff out quick, but not saying that I haven't done my homework on this. But look, there's some that I'm looking at it from a outsider's perspective, kind of a casual almost in a way. But look, this sometimes does work. And I've watched a lot of UFC fights. I've seen a lot of matches from all of these. So going back and watching loads of tape when you just kind of know what's going on. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, you have to look at what the UFC wants. If they're pushing somebody, they're giving them matchups that they want, not necessarily saying that this is one. But again, I think there's some fighters that get a little bit different of a push, and I think others kind of have to fight through the mud and the muck. But I'm going Belbita in this matchup. I think she gets it done. I think it's going to be a decision. So if I do anything, it'd probably be the over 2.5 in that one. But again, I don't have numbers on it just yet. Next up, Davey Grant taking on Daniel Santos. This one is a little bit, it's interesting to me because I like Santos. And I am picking Santos, just to let you know. Davey Grant comes in 16-7, and I realize he looked very good in his last matchup against Ramon Tavares, but I almost look at the fight that Tavares had in that matchup, and he just never pulled the trigger. It didn't seem like a normal performance from him, and it was weird watching that and just seeing Grant kind of piece him up throughout the matchup. I think it was a little bit inflated. I'm not buying the hype on Davey Grant at 39 years old, going up against somebody who, even though they have had a 1 and 9 month layoff, which I'm not quite sure, he's looked really good when he faced Munoz the last time. He beat John Castaneda, which is no easy feat. And Julio Arce, you went to unanimous decision, and that you went to decision there. I'm not going to take anything away from you. That was over 2 years, almost 3 years ago. Before that, you were still finishing fights. I think this could be one that he gets back to his winning and knockout ways. The numbers don't necessarily, in my eyes, necessarily support what I'm saying, because Davey Grant, if you look at it numbers-wise, he does have the higher output. But I think this comes down to aggression. And I think that Santos is the more aggressive fighter out of these two. I think it's going to be a little bit too much as it goes into the later rounds. So I don't know if Santos is going to be able to knock him out very quickly, but I think in the later rounds, he's definitely going to be live for a knockout. But I'm going Daniel Santos in this. I know some people, I'm seeing the popular pick as being Davey Grant, and maybe I'll be wrong when it comes fight night, but I'm not seeing it. I'm going Santos. Next up, Ode Osborne taking on Luis Garuli. This is going to be a flyweight matchup. This is going to be the debut for Garuli. He looked good in his debut. We also have, Ode Osborne. You kind of don't know what you're going to get when he goes out there anymore. He could look great, and then at other times he just kind of withers and doesn't look as good. This is going to be one of those that it's a little iffy, but I'm going with the newcomer. I'm not sold on anything that Osborne has done. He just doesn't seem to be having the ability to pull out fights. And I know it's very risky to pick a fighter who is 10-0. I realize that, but the smaller apex, I think this is going to be one that Garuli's going to put the pressure on and not allow Osborne to get comfortable in his game. And I think it's going to be interesting, but I think I'm going to have to go with the undefeated newcomer coming in. I think he gets it done. And this could be possibly the last time. If it's not an exciting fight, I could see this being the last time that we see Ode Osborne if he does lose this fight. Next up, we've got a middleweight bout, and I am very interested to see this one. This is going to open the main card. This is going to be Torres Finney taking on Robert Valentine. Finney is 3-0, Valentine 11-4, 1 no contest. He is coming off that loss against Ryan Loder in the UFC Tough Finale, and then debut fight for Torres Finney. He's kind of an interesting story. This guy has fought more times than any other person on Contender Series and won all three, all by different methods, and just got his contract this last time out. Here's the way I see this fight, and I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion on some people, but I think Robert Valentine, I think that his fight IQ is a little bit higher in this matchup. Finney sometimes does get to where he's just goes crazy. And I get it. You want to go out, you want to look good. I think Dana White said it best when he had such a big hesitation letting Finney come into the UFC. He said, once you get there, you are going to get just eaten alive by these guys. And it'll be interesting to see if this is the matchup. This may not be the matchup that it happens. And, you know, when you say something like that to somebody and they've got the story that Finney has, I think it's going to motivate him even more. But I think I think it's going to be a size thing. I cannot get around the size here. We've got Valentine, he's 10-4-1. And yes, he's coming off that last loss, but Loder is a former Division I wrestler. So it was kind of expected. He's going to be the more mature of the two fighters, I would say. He's 6'2" compared to 5'8". And I know you can't necessarily always depend on that, but I think it's going to be it could be a little bit more difficult for Finney to get in on his takedown. So I think the movement by Valentine is decent, and I think it's good enough to possibly avoid some of these takedowns, or if he does get taken down, to possibly work his way back up. It's risky, but I'm going to take Valentine to win this matchup. I think it'll be a decision. I don't think he's going to be able to knock him out, and that's the one thing. If you can't knock him out, can you dance around and stay away from the takedowns for 3 rounds? That I don't know, but I'm going to go with the underdog in Valentine. I think him being the person that a lot of those fighters were looking at as a coach, saying, can you help me out? Can you teach me these things? I think that showed a lot, and he did go a long way in The Ultimate Fighter. Again, you can't judge it by that, but I like him, and I'm gonna go with him, the more avid striker out of these two. Next up, another middleweight bout. We've got Brad Tavares taking on Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert is coming off of a loss in his last fight. Obviously, it's not a bad thing because he is always seeming to fight some pretty high-level competition. Renier de Ridder, obviously, we know that he is a high-level submission artist himself, was able to get it done. You've got some losses in there that I kind of question, though, especially more with the Andre Petrosky loss. We do have Tavares, who's coming off 2 losses, Gregory Rodriguez, and then we have Jun Young Park. I'm not going to say that those are bad losses as well. I think this is a matchup that, again, it's going to come down to aggression. And in my opinion, I think Tavares has the ability to keep it on the feet. I don't think Meerschaert's takedowns are that. I don't think he's a well-rounded fighter. I don't think he's going to be able to get it to the ground where he's going to be the man in control. Tavares has never been submitted. So I'm pretty confident this is going to be a Tavares matchup. This is tailor-made for him. I think he gets back in the winning column. I'm going to go Brad Tavares in that matchup. Next up, Kennedy Zachukwu taking on Martin Boudet. This is going to be a heavyweight matchup. Zachukwu comes in 14-5, Boudet 14-2. Both men are coming off of wins. Zachukwu, his wins are never that. He's not fighting high level competition. In my opinion, I don't think some of his wins are great. You know, when you did beat Chris Barnett, which again, I'm not going to say that that's a great win at all because he did get injured, and you beat Luka Bresky, who I don't think very highly of him as well. And then on the other hand, Martin Boudet, just watching him fight, I don't think very highly of him either. His only loss is Shamil Gaziev so far in the UFC, which I'll give him some credit there. And he's beaten some of the same people. He beat Bresky. He did beat him by split decision, but I just don't see as much of a threat there. And when you're talking about the same height, no height differentiation there, I think Zachukwu can drag this into later rounds. He may get taken down. Not going to say that he won't, but that reach 83-77, that is a big reach to overcome. And Boudet's takedowns have not looked the best at all, in my opinion. And I think that this is a matchup that Zachukwu could possibly get a knockout or at least put enough damage on him later on. But I would, again, I'm going with Zachukwu in this one, but this is one of those fights. Be careful because Boudet does have the ability to kind of just, I guess, bear you in a way, is what I'll say, where he's just using that body size and does get it to the ground. And then from there, it may just be a lay and pray situation, or he may get the ground and pound off. We'll see. But I'm gonna go with the more athletic Zachukwu. I think he can maneuver around, get this done, cause more damage. I don't think that highly of Boudet. And if Zachukwu does lose to Boudet, I'm definitely not going to think that highly of him either. We have next up a bantamweight matchup. Cortavius Romeus coming off a loss in his last matchup, sitting at 9-3, taking on Chang Ho Lee, coming off a win in his last matchup. He's sitting at 10-1. I will be straight up. At first, I was looking at this and I'm a little iffy on this, because if Cortavius Romeus gets the ground game going, this could be a matchup that is very, very close. Okay. And I did change my pick. I changed it to Romeus, but I am doing a pick flip back because I just looking at it a little bit more, even though I don't think very highly of some of the people that Chang Ho Lee has fought, I think this is a matchup that just the size advantage is going to be a difference. He does have decent takedown defense. Again, I'll question some of the people that he's fought in the past, but I think that Romeus may be able to get this to the ground once or twice. But I think if he does, Lee's got the ability to get it back on the feet, where he may be the more dangerous striker. And again, it's going to, if it takes enough out of you for you to get it to the ground, you may not be going back to the ground. And it may prove to be the detriment to Romeus. So I'm going to go back to my original pick in this one. Chang Ho Lee is where I'm going with this. I think he can get this done. I think the size advantage is going to be something that's going to be tough to overcome. So I'm going Chang Ho Lee in that fight. Next up, is this the co-main event? Yes, it is. The co-main event, we got a featherweight bout. Pat Sabatini taking on Joe Anderson Brito. Sabatini, 19-5, coming off a win in his last fight, where he did look impressive. And then we have a 17-4-1 for Brito, coming off a loss in his last fight. Both of these guys have very good ability on the ground. Both of them are very, very tough to take down and keep down once you do have them on the ground. We do have Joe Anderson Brito, who's coming off that loss to William Gomi. I'm not too impressed with you losing that. It was a split decision, and I'm not necessarily sure that couldn't have gone either way. So we do have Pat Sabatini coming off that his last win against Jonathan Pierce, where he got the submission by rear naked choke. Before that, Diego Lopez knocked him out. Before that, he won by submission to Lucas Almeida. Before that, he lost by KO to Damon Jackson. And before that, he won against TJ Laramie. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Win, loss, win, loss, win. Won his last fight. I know that you cannot fight. I know that you cannot pick fights like this. And I'm not telling you that that's how I'm picking this fight. Again, it comes down to aggression. I think this is going to be a fight that, knowing how Brito comes out in his matchups, he's very aggressive when he comes out. And in this matchup, coming off of a loss, you can't be happy about that. Sabatini, he's got a track record of win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So I'm not going to go against the trend and think that he's going to be able to, one, I don't know if he's got the ability to get it to the ground. Brito's not an easy person to take down. He's definitely not an easy person to keep down. When he gets it there, he may have a slight advantage, but Brito's never been subbed. I don't think this is the matchup that he's going to be subbed in this one. And I think that if he does get up, he's going to put a high volume on, and he is the better striker out of these two. So I'm going to go with the person that I think is the more dangerous out of the two, and that's going to be Brito. So I think Brito can get this done. I think it's going to be a knockout in the second round. Next up, and this is the main event, we have number 8 in the featherweight division, Josh Emmett taking on Lerone Murphy. This, again, this is another one that I am number 10, Lerone Murphy. So this is the opportunity for one of these guys to really solidify themselves as contenders here. Josh Emmett, 19-4. He's coming off a win in his last matchup. I believe that was that the Bryce Mitchell knockout where he knocked that idiot out? Yep. That was over a year ago, though. So we haven't seen him in a little while. And we have Lerone Murphy coming in off the win on Dan Ige. That was a unanimous decision. A lot of his fights do go the distance. He is 15-0-1. You always got to be careful with that type of stuff. When you're looking at a fighter who's undefeated, they've never tasted defeat. You know that Josh Emmett, he is a guy that can definitely steal that zero. So you got to be careful here. I think the height, 5'9" to 5'6" on Josh Emmett's side, and just the overall speed. I think speed is going to be a factor in this one. I think Murphy is going to be the faster of the two fighters. And I think even if this ends up being a stand-up matchup, I don't think that Murphy's going to be outmatched by any means. So I think he can definitely get this done. So that's how I'm going. Emmett's a very tough person to get out of there. I don't see this fight, just knowing how Murphy usually goes about his business. I don't think this is a fight that's going to end inside the distance. So I would go the either fight goes the distance, or if they give you an over 3.5, I like the over 3.5 in this one. If they give you an over 2.5, I definitely like that one. But that is how I'm going with all of these fights for this weekend. And hopefully we're going to see if this pans out my way or not. But I did tell you that I was going to show you a few of my bets to start for what I've put in already. And this first bet that I'm going to give you it's a 2-leg parlay. It's over on DraftKings. You're not getting too wide away from the odds that I got when I put this in. So if you go over there now, you're still going to probably get this. I'm pretty confident this one hits. The one piece that I will tell you, occasionally, if I have a bad feeling come fight night and Brito wins his matchup and I don't feel good about Murphy anymore, I'll take my winnings and move on. Go to next week because I have some picks next week that I feel more confident about. But I'm going Brito and Murphy money lines minus 109 on DraftKings. That's my first bet. That's a 1-unit play. My next bet, I'm going Kennedy Zachukwu money line and Brad Tavares money line at minus 110 on DraftKings. Like I said, these lines have kind of shifted, so I don't think you're going to get minus 110 anymore. But that's where I'm going with that one. And then I have one more that I'm going to give you. This one is Pedro Falcao money line, Garuli money line, and Murphy money line plus 428 DraftKings. This is a little bit more up there. So we're gonna see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Questioning these picks, these are kind of a little bit more on the risky side, but you got to have fun. And I'm not this is definitely not a full unit, so we can go a little bit lighter and still get a heavy payout if this does hit. It's only 3. Hopefully we get it done. I hope you've enjoyed the breakdown. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this page as much as possible. And like I said before, I do put bets in on NBA, NFL, whatever I see fit, sometimes golf, sometimes MLB has been pretty decent, but I'm not going to, until I feel really comfortable and giving you what I'm seeing in my bets, I'm not going to put them out there just yet. So we'll keep going with this for now. We'll do the fight breakdowns. That's where I have the best return. Like I said, we had a great weekend last weekend, but hit the like and subscribe. This is Be All In Sports, people, and we are all in all the time. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week. I will be back to update these as the week goes on. Any news, updates, we'll get them in there. And obviously, we always do this again when the weigh-ins happen. So we'll read some body language when it comes to that time, and we will get the readings, how we feel they're looking after that, the weight cut, and see how pumped up they are for the actual fight. So stay tuned for more. Thanks for joining. See you soon.